All right, welcome to another day on the homestead. I'm Dave and this is Alaskan Homesteading. I am working on my UTV today. I've decided that as a preventative measure, I want to replace, at least inspect, but probably replace the drive belt on the UTV. I don't know how many miles are on it. I don't know if it's the original. The machine's got about 1,500 miles on it, and I've been working it pretty hard here, moving snow around. So I just want to make sure that it's in good shape so that it can serve me well through the rest of the winter. And hopefully this summer we'll be able to take it out into the backcountry and do some exploring. At any rate, I've got the machine inside now. We'll get the snow melted off of it, and we'll start tearing it apart and take a look. The reason I decided to make this video about installing the new belt on this Arctic Cat Prowler is because I was looking all over the internet and could not find really anything, at least nothing specific to this model. I found general, how do you replace the belt on an Arctic Cat engine. They had the whole assembly sitting on a workbench, outside of the vehicle. And so you can imagine that trying to get at the clutch and assembly inside the vehicle is quite a bit more complicated. And so that's what I'm going to show you here today. To save time on the video, I've already eliminated some of the steps here that are pretty uninteresting. I removed the seats from here, the center console cover, and the mounting bracket for the passenger side seat, because the clutch assembly and where the belt is housed is down here. And my next phase of this is to make it easier to access all of the screws around the outer edge of that clutch cover. The clutch cover is held on by a series of T30 Torx screws, which I will have to remove all of those. They go in a big, oval pattern all the way around this housing. And, there's all kinds of stuff in the way, which is going to make it a little challenging. So where I started running into trouble was the removal of this fender liner. It's a little tricky. And so right underneath here, there was another T30 bolt that held the top of the fender liner in. And underneath, there are these two slots in the fender liner that engage with this piece of plastic up here. So you kind of have to gently pry that back and flip this down while you have that piece pried back. It felt like it was going to break at one point, but it didn't. And so I've started just kind of pushing on this in different directions to try to free it from its attachment. I think the last point of attachment for it is down here, and I can't really tell yet, because this thing is still covered in ice and snow and crud, what this is. If this is just a little rivet or something, or how this is attached on here. So I've got to clean this up a bit and try to free this from here. But to do that, I think I need to get this wheel off, because it's really in the way, and I think it'll be much, much easier to work on this, reaching through this fender liner with this wheel assembly off of here and out of the way. Boy, that's a lot of crud in here that I'm going to have to clean out. Now I've got easy access to this little piece here, which I think is the last part holding this fender liner captive. Let's try, see if there's a Torx that fits. Oh, maybe that's it. I think I found it. So that is a T20 fastener. Let's see if we can run this out. T20. And there we have it. Almost dropped it on my head, but that's all right. We've now freed the fender liner. One practice I like is putting the fastener back where I got it, especially when there's just weird random sizes and it's an unfamiliar piece of equipment that I haven't really worked on. And so now you can see we have much, much better access to the clutch cover. There's still some obstructions. Obviously we have all this tubular frame chassis in the way, but that's okay. We have a much better chance of getting in there now. I am dreading it a little bit. I'm a little worried about what I'll find when I open that up, but it's got to be done because I just don't know, and I need to be able to depend on this piece of equipment when we travel miles into the backcountry here in Alaska. Back to our T30, and I'm just cracking these loose to start with. Some of these I'm going to have to get a little ratchet wrench in here because I will not be able to reach them with this tool. Do I curse myself and remark on how well this is going? So far, we have not encountered a real obstacle in this process. Fasteners are all coming loose nicely. There must still be some fasteners that I haven't gotten loose enough yet. Just using a little dead blow here to try to separate the clutch housing. One thing I did read is that in the process of opening the clutch, you use one of the screws from the housing as a driver to separate the sheaves. I'll demonstrate that later. First dropped bolt. That's fun. Where did it go? Now, it was bound to happen eventually. It's probably down there underneath the gas tank. I'll be able to find that once I get the clutch cover the rest of the way off. Remind me later that that's still down there when I'm frantically looking for it. Really appreciate your help. I think there's one more in there pretty deep. Yeah, there's one more down there right behind that nut, right behind that bolt there. There's another fastener that I'm gonna have to get at. Well, doesn't want to do it. Have to grab a real ratchet. Now that will not work. This is the problem. You've got engineers that never work on anything, designing stuff, and they make it nigh impossible sometimes to get to some of the fasteners. That thing is just buried in there, and there's just not a lot of space to access it. The machine came with a little toolkit that includes this little T30 driver. Let's see if maybe this is what they want you to use. That's the right. It's the right fastener. It's the right tool. The question is whether it's actually usable here. It's got enough slop in that fastener. Can't quite get any purchase on it. And then there's floorboard underneath the frame there. This could be fun. Well, I think I figured it out. I have to reach in from the front here with this little driver and engage with that fastener. Which is a little tricky because you can't see and the angles are awful. Let's see if we can get that on there. This is the only angle I could find that would work. Let's see if I can get it to fit into the fastener here. Oh, there we go. Yes. Still have to get it a little looser. Try and run this by hand on here, so at least gives me a little bit of purchase. Yeah, it's coming out. That's good. I think we'll have this clutch cover off here shortly. Although I may be cursing myself because looks like there's some pretty tight tolerances here between the clutch cover and the fuel tank and everything else. Yep, that one next to what I think is a drain bolt on the clutch cover, you have to access that one from the front. All right, well, let's see. Huh. All right, that just came right off. Beautiful. The question is, how do you manipulate it out? I'll just manipulate this for a minute and see if there's any orientations that feel like they might give way. Good news is, on first glance, the clutch assembly looks pretty good. Well, I'm gonna get dirt all over it now, but the belt also looks fairly good at first glance. I don't see any fraying, any fibers coming off of it. This doesn't look too bad. But manipulating this cover off of here, that's going to be a trick.
Much later.
I think that in order to get this clutch cover out, I need to be able to jockey the gas tank over a bit. And in order to do that, I believe I need to get the floor out, or at least very much out of the way, so that I can reposition that fuel tank. And that fuel tank seems to be bolted down here in the front, and it had a strap in the back, which I loosened, but that didn't give me enough freedom of movement there. So I'm going to have to disconnect this and see if I can shift this tank forward and out of the way to make room for the clutch cover to come out. In order to remove this whole floor panel, there's a series of screws along the edge, along there. This center console piece that had the cup holders, that has to come off. And last but not least, the mounting bolts, these retainer pins for the seat mechanism, have to come off to make clearance for this edge of the floor. This is like a one-piece tub floor assembly that you have to be able to move, and that pin assembly is in the way when you try to pull that forward. I got the floor all the way out, undid the strap on the front of the gas tank. That's again a couple of T30 bolts that hold a strap down there. And now I'm going to see if that's enough to be able to manipulate this gas tank out of the way to get that clutch cover off there. Now, I'm hoping if I manipulate this gas tank, which by the way I had to take this whole side plastic off to let the fuel filler neck free. And of course, for bonus points, I literally just refilled the fuel, so the gas tank is super heavy. Oh, well, look at that. Victory. Well, here it is. I got the clutch cover off. Boy, what a pile of nonsense this is. I don't know, man. Like, somebody claimed this was like field serviceable. I don't think so. No way. You'd be hours on the trail trying to take all this stuff apart, pull the floor out, move the gas tank, etc. There's no way. But here in the the shop at home, yeah, it's still not too easy. But let's keep moving forward and see if we can get that belt off. Based on the videos that I've seen, I think I still have to actually disassemble the clutches out of here. So I'm going to have to check and see. I might not even have the sockets I need to take these off. Well, the answer, of course, is no. I do not have the correct size sockets to take off the primary and secondary clutch. They're actually two different sizes. I checked a couple of other videos online. I think I need 1 1/8" and an even larger one for the driven clutch. But I am going to take some measurements with a little caliper and see if I can find the right sizes. And maybe, who knows, maybe the local auto store will have the right socket available for me. I'm not sure what time they close, but it is getting late. Well, I'm coming up with 1 1/4" for the primary clutch and 1 7/16" for the secondary or driven clutch. That's 1 1/4" on this guy and 1 7/16" on this guy. I'm going to have to do a little bit of research just to confirm, and then check and see how late my auto parts store is open. See if I can get those sockets tonight.
The next day.
We're back. It is the next day. I had to wait till today to go get the sockets that I need to drive off those clutches. The stores were just closed last night, and I had some other errands to do today, so I figured I'd just combine the trips and save a little fuel. At any rate, I've got the sockets, I got my impact. Let's go ahead and get started and see if I can get those clutches off. All right, I've got my new impact socket, 38 millimeters. We'll see what we get here. That is not budging. Well, that is not encouraging. What am I going to do about that? I don't think I have a way to hold this in place to try to take it with the breaker bar. I'm not even sure I could get a breaker bar on there, to be honest with you, and all this stuff that's in the way. This is really tight. And that's a pretty strong impact. I mean, complain all you want about Ryobi, that thing has really been able to do a lot for me. I'll have to break out the air ratchet. Alright, now it's air ratchet time. Oh, many Ugga Duggas. Oh, ha! That's awesome. Came right off. There was a nice big chunk of red Loctite in there. Somebody really didn't want that to come off. Well, that's good. Alright, well there's the primary clutch. Let's go ahead and see if we can zip that off. Let's see what we can do here. Remove that primary. Just put that anywhere. No problem. Comes right off. And we should be able to remove the secondary. Take this off. Some bushing. Looks okay. Secondary. So this is the primary clutch. I just pulled that off of the vehicle. It's just a little washer here. I don't know the names of these parts because I haven't studied these mechanisms, so pardon me while I fumble my way through this thing. But basically what happens in here, you got these little rollers that are sitting in kind of a bit of a ramped assembly. And as this clutch spins, these rollers move outward. They'll move outward due to centrifugal force. And that will cause this half of the primary clutch to expand, which means that the clutch sheaves are actually getting closer together and making that diameter of that side of the belt drive a little larger. Again, don't know a ton about these CVT mechanisms in snow machines and UTVs and 4x4s and stuff, but that's my basic understanding. These little rollers are dirty as heck, so I'm going to just Have to clean them up a little bit. You can see they were like green originally, so I'm gonna want to just get that debris off of there. Overall, I think I'm just going to go through this whole thing, clean it up, give it kind of a fresh start, and put it back together before I reassemble. On the other side, you can see there is some debris on the shiv, so people have said to use Scotch-Brite to kind of clean that up, get the debris off of there, and we'll see. I'm going to do a little bit more reading on that, because this is leaving. This green Scotch-Brite is really abrasive. I think I'm going to have to find a blue Scotch-Brite so I don't unnecessarily scour the surface of this. I don't really like that, that's putting scratches on the surface. This is the secondary or driven clutch. I know even less about how these operate, so I'm not even going to attempt any form of explanation. I just know there is a monster spring inside of here. Everything looks like it's in good condition. Like, I don't see any obvious problems, anything broken. It is dirty, so I'm going to try and get it cleaned up a little bit to the best I can. Some of these nooks and crannies, I think it just is what it is. But I want to go ahead and get the shiv cleaned up as well, and make sure that that's good to go and cleaned up before we reassemble. Here are the new belt and the old belt. Inspecting this old belt, everything looks pretty good. You know, this belt looks like it's in reasonably good condition. I don't see any damage to it, any obvious, cracking or tearing. No like fibers exposed or anything like that, and I think it's in great shape. That said, since I've got the whole thing apart and I have a brand new belt, I am going to install the brand new belt, and this used belt will make a really nice spare. Again, it looks like it's in great shape. I don't see anything wrong with this belt anywhere. So I'm perfectly happy to put the new belt on. We'll have to go through a break-in period on that, and then keep the old one as a backup. Well, like I said, I want to clean this thing out a bit, at least get some of this dust and debris, which again I think is just belt dust, cleaned out of here. Yeah, I can smell that. It's probably not too good to be breathing it. That dust. Oof. Yeah, that's not too nice. Yeah. So I'm just checking snugness on these guys just to make sure nothing over here is grossly loose or anything. Since I've got this torn down this far, I might as well check a few things while I'm in here. And yeah, that one's loose. Super. That's quite loose. That was backed out. Several millimeters. I'll just snug that up. Nice. I have no idea what the torque spec is, and good luck finding that information anywhere. Yeah, all these feel like they can use a little bit of snugging. Now that one's good. This one definitely needed a little tighten. Check this one again. Yeah, definitely can be snugged up. That one's good. Alright, well, I guess I'm glad I went in here. I thought I was filming, but I wasn't, and boy, this really cleaned up quite nicely. You can see lots of black gunk debris that found its way onto the Scotch-Brite. I just used a little bit of alcohol and the Scotch-Brite, and this just cleaned it right up. It's looks really good, and you can see it. You can see the dirt kind of smearing around on that surface as I work this. So I know it's pulling more dirt out of that surface. We'll get a nice clean shiv when we're done. And these blue Scotch-Brites are not so abrasive. They don't tear things up the way those green ones do. Boy, that's looking really nice now. It's nice and shiny. much cleaner. I'll keep going after this a little bit more though. I really want to get it nice and clean before reassembly. Let's see some dirty spots. And this alcohol's working really well on here. I can hope that this works as well on the other shivs. I won't have as good access on that driven clutch shiv because I don't think I'm going to be able to disassemble that one. I'll be able to spread it out, but I'm not going to be taking it apart. That thing looks like I'd need special tools to be able to reassemble it. And I'm not into that. Not today. Not without a good reason. That is miles better. I mean, it feels better. It's yeah, I think this is great. I don't know how much of a difference it'll make to the operation of the machine, but just knowing that I put it back together better than when it came apart makes me happy. We'll set that guy aside, let it dry off. Mop up all the crud here. Spilled alcohol and mess. Now this one you'll be able to watch the magic as we clean this up. There's some pretty baked on gunk there. Wonder if I need to get my old friend brake cleaner out here. Let's see. But you know what? I don't have any more brake cleaner. I used it all up on that stupid diesel heater cleaning exercise. Well, life goes on. We'll just use the alcohol. Alright, well, I've got this thing cleaned up, I think, the best I can, given the constraints I've got right now. And we're going to go ahead and reassemble. These rollers go in first. Already it looks a little better. And this guy goes in with these little pieces, these little bushings in here. Whoops. And we've got this little bearing that sits in here. That rides down, and there's our washer. Well, it is time to reassemble, and let's just go ahead and start putting pieces back in. Set this on here. This is going to be a little tricky because it's splined. Why don't you want to go back on? There we go. All right. Oh boy. Yeah, I was afraid of this. So when I was trying to separate these shivs again, I think the threads in that hole stripped out and I don't know if I'll be able to get this separated to put that belt back in there. That's going to be a problem. First we put that piece back on. This guy. Double check our direction. Yeah, got that right. Okay. Yeah, this is really, really tight. There we go, that's on. That's on. It's not engaging the spline. That is not seated fully because this secondary isn't open. Pop that on here anyway. Yeah, it just won't close up. I really need to get that secondary open. Nope, that's not going to work. Yeah, I need to get a different screw in there. Alright, well, I almost didn't get these back on here. Ended up having a problem with the process of separating the secondary drive sheave. I think that when the previous owner did the wet clutch, he buggered up the threads inside this thing that allow you to drive that screw in to separate the sheaves. I was having real problems working with it even to get it off, and when I went to separate it again to install it, I ended up that screw just slipped out, and so I think those threads were already sort of wallowed out. I'm going to have to eventually, I think next time if I have to replace this belt, I'm going to have to replace this secondary clutch as well. I looked on eBay. It looks like another $200 to $300 proposition to get the whole replacement secondary clutch. So that's not the end of the world, but it does annoy me. So anyway, I ended up using a big clamp to kind of squeeze the belt so that it would drive in between the shivs and separate that secondary clutch. So that was my backdoor way of doing it. Was while I had the primary clutch off, I just put a big clamp right on here and squeezed and squeezed and squeezed until this opened up just enough that I could slip the primary back on. So at this point I'm ready now to reassemble. Got my red Loctite, so you definitely want to Loctite these threads on these things. They were Loctited before, and the assembly videos I've seen online also indicated to go ahead and Loctite them. So I'm going to get that threaded on with some Loctite, and this one as well. Red Loctite. Put that on both sides of that. And okay, I'll get that assembled. So I mentioned using a clamp to compress the belt. I'll show you what I did, and it works surprisingly well. Just put one of these guys on here and squeezed it right down, and that wedged open the secondary clutch, no problem. And that gave me enough space to install the primary clutch. Well, I've got the clutch cover cleaned up. Took a nice Scotch-Brite to this mating surface where the gasket sits, and we're going to go ahead and get this reinstalled and get everything put back together. This gasket is a little tricky. There's like a couple of pins to locate it, but it's not going to stick there. I didn't really want to use any adhesive on it. What I'm going to do is use a couple of the mounting screws to locate it, keep it in place. I think that'll work better. Easy enough, because they'll just sit right on there. Just check around the edges, make sure the gasket didn't get messed up anywhere. And a couple spots where it's hanging out. I'm going to spare you watching me put all these screws back in, and we'll kind of cut to the end here. Well, it is the third day of messing with the side-by-side. It is minus 18 degrees this morning, and I've got to go take the side-by-side on a little bit of a drive. We got everything reassembled, got the clutch cover on, the engine's running. I put the thing back together just enough that I can kind of test the work and make sure everything is operating correctly. As you can see, we have a beautiful, beautiful cold morning here in South Central Alaska. So it's a nice day for a quick little drive around the neighborhood. Let's go over and check on the machine. I've got it warming up over here in the Shelter Logic. I've got the seats still out, the floor is only partially installed, the center console is here. So we're just gonna go drive around gently and see how things are. New belts on these types of transmissions, these continuously variable systems in quads and side-by-sides and snow machines have a break-in process. They want you to drive pretty gently for about 20 to 30 miles varying the throttle, but not using full throttle. Just kind of, you know, take it easy for a while to get the belt worn in. So we're gonna drive around the neighborhood a little bit. I'm gonna go pick up my mail, and we'll see what we see if there's anything interesting along the way. So far, so good. It is super loud, partially because I've got some of these body panels removed in here still. Now I need to get, I think I'll go in high gear for a couple minutes here just to go to the mailbox. All right, that is a successful project. I'm just like really overjoyed with how that went. You know, there were definitely some challenges I had to overcome, figuring out how to disassemble the machine enough to make it possible to replace that belt. But hopefully that'll be useful for other folks with this same machine. Some of this machine is a 2013, so it's getting a little bit on the older side, and I imagine other folks will need to do this same task, and having some insight in the level of disassembly that's required may be of value. If you're enjoying this kind of educational content, go ahead and hit that thumbs up for me. It really, really helps the channel grow. It helps people find the videos. It helps YouTube know that this is good stuff. If you want to see more of it, subscribe. I've got another project coming with another machine that we recently acquired, so that'll be interesting. Stay tuned for that, and we'll see you in the next video.